Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It is Monday, and this is the Candray Institute, so that means it is Study Hall. We are back for session 3 of Ready, Set, Sterilize. And this was a 4-part series meant to bring you guys some support for all of the Hillman Talk students that have graduated from their free class and are in the process of self-studying with everything that's remaining online and are trying to just get a little extra support for their exams. So I am here with you guys. Today we're going to be talking about point of use cleaning and decontamination. However, as always, I will remind you, this is your study hall. So if over this last week you guys have had questions, if there's something you want to say, if there's a vocab question you want cleared up, ask it, okay? I am yours until 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. That being said, I don't want to be talking to myself, okay? So I see y'all over there. So say hi, interact with the chat, drop your questions, like the live, share, do like, share, and subscribe, all the things, okay? It'll be very much appreciated on my end. All right, and then lastly, before we get into it today, I wanted to show you guys this. I know most of us are studying to take the CRCST exam from HSPA. There you go, ticky-tacky. And when you become an HSPA member, one of the benefits is they will send you a magazine once a month, and this is called Process. And in this magazine, you will find updates on what's happening in the industry, whether that's new science that's coming out. Like, for instance, the cover page for that month was exploring the inner spaces of lumen devices. So you guys, I don't think I've ever used the term lumen with you. That's another way to say cannulated is something that has a lumen or a cannula. So now we have cameras that can go into those tiny little laparoscopic instruments and can see inside, see if they're damaged. Are they pitted? Are they scraped in any kind of way? See if there's bioburden left behind in there, right? So just something I wanted to share with you guys. It gives little updates, has some industry updates, materials updates. We'll talk to you about CEUs too. Sometimes they'll have continuing education credits in there. So just an FYI, because once you pay your fee and you become an HSPA member, or you become HSPA certified and get your CRCST, there's a $10 fee, and that's additional every year if you want to be a member. So you'll pay $50 every single year to recertify or renew your certification once you get it. And you can choose to spend an extra $10 to become a member, and that's one of the perks that you get. Another perk that you get is you get discounted rates to the conferences that take place at the national level. All right. Lucinda. Hi, Lucinda. How are you? Hello over there on TikTok. All right. We're finna get into it, okay? Because we definitely got notes to go over today. So I am going to share my screen. Before I get into the subjects for today, did anybody have any sterile processing related questions that they wanted to ask? And I'm going to go ahead and get these notes going for us. And I do have all of the notes updated for sessions 1 through 3. And also I have notes ready for you guys for session 4. So when we leave tonight, all of that will go up on the website so that you all can have those with you if you want to use them to make notes on, okay? All right. And if you're new here, if you click the links in the bio, you will find your way to the Candray Institute website. All right, we got that open. We're going to share our screen and we're going to get started. That's the right one. Nope, no, it's not. That's my notes. Wrong notes. If y'all get those notes, you're gonna have half everything you need. You're gonna have half, and we don't want that. Y'all go through the same struggle every week. One week I'm gonna learn. Click. Black window. There we go. All righty. I'll make that bigger. Okay. So now that I have that up full screen, YouTube, I cannot see your comments, but don't fret because I will come back frequently to that screen to look for your comments, and they will be there because you guys are chatting with me today. All right. So we are here for the Candray Institute's Ready, Set, Sterilize Study Hall Series. We're on session 3. And we're getting ready to take the CRCST exam. That's the Certified Registered Central Sterile Technician exam. For those of you that are preparing for the CBSPD, a lot of this information should still be relevant because they're both getting you ready to do the same job. Okay, so same thing. If you have questions from CBSPD, feel free to ask. All right, my name is Alessandra, and we'll be going to be covering chapters 7 and 8. And with this session, I wanted to focus on decontamination and transportation. So what happens to those instruments once they're used? How do we get them safely to the decontamination department? How do we manually clean them? How do we mechanically clean them? And what is our process to verify that all of that actually worked? Okay. If y'all remember me talking from sterilization, since we're not scientists, we're not chemists, right? When we put items into the sterilizer, we don't actually know that that machine is doing what it's supposed to do. We can't get in there and find out. Otherwise, we'll be exposed to the sterilant. If it's the high temp machine, we will pass away. Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't want to test to see if it worked like that. So we have what we call process challenge devices in sterilization, right? The PCDs that come with that thick cardstock, an indicator or integrator, and a biological indicator. And we use those two things to test to see if the sterilization cycle worked. Well, over here in Decontam, we don't have the same exact test, but we definitely have process challenge devices that are designed to see that all the steps inside of this mechanical washer process actually work. Did it get to the temperature it was supposed to get to? Was it exposed to the impingement we want to expose to? And was it exposed to any kind of chemicals that we wanted it to be exposed to? Okay, I'm going to jump out and check on y'all. All right. Make sure if you're over on TikTok, you're liking the live. And if you're over on YouTube, make sure you like that, hit that share button and subscribe. Okay, so first order of business. Today's focus, like I said, is going to be on cleaning and point of use cleaning, decontamination, transport. So the whole focus is how do we reduce bioburden, control contamination, clean and verify effectively. And that portion of you guys' job, if we think about sterile processing as pillars, decontamination, assembly and inspection, sterilization, and then storage, this is going to be where the good majority of your work is at. And when I say work, I mean like your physical lifting labor. Not to say that you're not doing physical work in all the other areas, but this is going to be where a lot of it is at. That's because we're going to receive those instruments in decontam, and then we're going to take those instruments out. We're going to wash them, scrub them, take them, put them on the washer if they go through the automated washer. Take them over to the washer. When we get them to assembly, we're going to unload them. So it's just like a lot of touch points in decontam. A lot of opportunities for moving and twisting, bending and pushing and pulling. Test taking tip for you guys. When you're reading through that exam, I want you to slow down and make sure that you read every single exam question twice before you just start clicking. Okay, the reason why is some of these questions are designed to trip you up. You're going to be looking for the context and you want to take a second read for the details because I could shift something just slightly and it may change the whole parameter of what you need to tell me. So for instance, if you were here last week, one of the questions that I asked was when we're looking at that life cycle of a tray, if I'm in decontam, you bring me the tray in decontam, this tray is sterile. Came straight from sterile storage, has not been opened, hasn't been touched. You bring it to me in decontam, you ask me where does it go? I'm going to tell you it needs to go back to sterile storage. But if you bring it into my decontam, now I know from context, all bets are off, we starting over. Okay, I gotta pop that tray. I'm gonna put it in the mechanical washer and I'm gonna wash it like it ain't never been washed before. All right. So context is gonna play a big part of your test. Trust me when I'm telling you. Read that question twice before you answer it. Leadership skill focus for this section, clear communication. If you can't hear from what I just said, clear communication. Good leaders make the plan visible and keep the team focused. Good leaders communicate clearly. All right. Okay, so I'm a little bit behind, but we're getting there. Any questions so far? Don't hesitate to drop them. Okay, so you and I are in Deacon Tim. Somebody tell me what PPE do I have on? Because I'm in Deacon Tim. What am I wearing? And extra points for you if you can tell me what does PPE stand for. What does PPE mean? All right, that's the two things I want to see in the chat. Okay, what's full PPE though? I see you TikTok. What is full PPE? What do I have to have on in order for it to be considered full PPE? YouTube, wake it up. Somebody over there better know something. Lucinda, gloves, gown, safety goggles. We're getting close. All right, so I got my gown, my safety goggles on. I got my gloves on. I got a gown on. What am I missing? Somebody help me. Shoe covers. I need shoe covers. Okay, this is Deacon Tam. This is Bloody Instruments. And again, I tell y'all every time, I'm not trying to be nasty, but we talking about BioBird. That's what you're going to be cleaning, okay? So I'm going to talk about it straight up. This is post-surgical instruments. Okay, if they were using EEA dilators, they might have some feces left on them. If they did an OBC section, there might be a little piece of placenta left behind. There might be some mucous membrane left behind. If they were doing spine surgery, ortho surgery, there might be some bone left behind. Okay, so PPE full, I need it all. Okay, hat. Thank you, Sherry. Head covering. Thank you, Sherry, also for using clear and specific language. What did we just say leaders do? Leaders give that clear language, that visible plan. Sherry didn't just say gown. Listen to this, y'all. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Sherry said fluid resistant gown. I can't just put on anything. I need a gown that is fluid resistant. Blood splashes, washes down my gown. Doesn't I don't got on no cotton gown where I get a splash and now I'm wet. Okay. Safety goggles, shoe covers, head covering. All right. That is gonna be your full PPE. All right. Now I'm gonna say this. I know I've given y'all this admonishment a million times. When you go in Deacon Town, a manager or supervisor is not gonna be there every 5 minutes making sure you have all that stuff on. Okay. You wanna risk your life, you do that. The problem with it is if you don't put this PPE on, not only are you risking your life, health, wealth, and safety, but also your team members, because you could be tracking germs from room to room, and your patients. Okay? PPE is not an option. Wear it. It's for your safety. All right, let me get my notes back up. Okay, so we are in Deacon Town. Thank y'all all. We got on all our PPE. When they use their instruments, we start the cleaning process with an area called point of use, okay? Point of use is going to tell you where this thing is being cleaned at and how it's being cleaned to start, all right? So point of use as far as location means these instruments are right where they use them. I know it sounds redundant to say, but they're right where they use them. So if I'm in the operating room, point of use is the operating room. If I'm in the emergency room, point of use is my emergency room bay that I'm in. If I'm upstairs and I'm on the floor, you done came in for a pap smear. The point of use is the procedure room that I'm in. If I'm over and I'm in procedure somewhere where they're doing flexible scopes, my room is the point of use, okay? Point of use cleaning is going to get done by the technician that was using the item. So in the operating room, that's going to be the scrub tech. At the bedside, that's going to be a nurse or a circulating nurse. Okay, in the procedure area, procedure tech. whoever is responsible for using that instrumentation is going to be the one to start the point of use cleaning. What that's going to look like is they're going to remove all of what we call the gross visible soil. And when we use the term gross in sterile processing, I don't mean gross like nasty. I mean gross as in I can see that soil. I can look at that and I can see a piece of bone. I can see a drop of blood. I can see the soil. Okay, that's what we mean when we say gross soil or bioburden. All right. So that technician is going to either wipe that instrument down, flush those lumens. They're going to get it so that those instruments are not clean, but they're safer to transport, right? So let's say I got an instrument and I just yank it straight up out the body and I just go dripping all down the hallway, right? Not a safe way to transport instruments. But if I wipe it down, I put it in a closed container, I make sure that it has a biohazard sticker on it, and I transport it. That's a much safer way to do that. Okay, so point of use cleaning, we want them to remove the visible soil at the bedside or at the point of use, and that's going to help us all in the long run prevent biofilm from forming. Because, and you guys will definitely want a flashcard for biofilm because it's probably going to come up in a couple of questions, but we want to reduce the amount of time that gross soil or any of them germs are on that instrument, because germs are just like us. If we outside in the wilderness, we're going to start finding shelter. We're going to start grouping together. We're going to make it harder for anybody to penetrate or come through and attack us, right? Germs going to do the same thing. Once they're on an instrument, they're going to start grouping together. They're going to start building layers, and they're going to start becoming a little bit harder to clean, what we call resistant. And that's just a time game, guys. The longer we let that thing sit dirty, the more time it has to build. So the whole purpose of point of use cleaning is to start that cleaning clock immediately. Get that stuff off of there, get it contained, get it down to decontam. Okay, so in here, I have a note about using a proper transport bin with the label. It's very important for you guys to remember, anytime you're transporting anything in sterile processing, it must be labeled. It's either going to say it's clean while you're going down the hallway, or it's going to say it's dirty while you're going down the hallway. But never should you be walking down the hallway without a sign that says clean or dirty, okay? I'm going to click back YouTube. Any questions for me so far? All right, y'all. If you have them, throw them out. Okay. So for you, I added study notes this week for you guys. Just a tip, that point of use cleaning is wiping. When we wipe down those instruments, it prevents the hardened soil and the microbial growth that's going to give us biofilm. And when we transport items, it must be in a closed container. Okay? Closed container and marked with a biohazard label. Okay. You come walking down the hallway with your instruments inside of a bucket that has no lid on it, you're going to get a citation. All right. They ain't going to ask you no questions. They're just going to give you that fine. All right. Key terms from this chapter. Now, let me be very frank. I added 3 from our notes because they were things that I was talking about today. But let me be very clear. All of them terms in your decontamination chapters are going to show up somewhere on this test, because like I was saying earlier, when we think about the pillars of sterile processing, cleaning and sterilizing is the main focus of y'all's job. Okay. It's also going to be the main focus of your test. So if you're new on the website in the file share section, one of the things I asked y'all to do was go over to my HSPA and download the certification handbook. Because the certification handbook is going to tell you how many questions are on this exam and what's the percentages for each section. So you know how heavy to study. Okay. I don't want to see you spending all your time in instrument identification and you only study sterilization a little bit, because you're not going to do good on this test. All right. Moving down to the next section. I got a few more minutes. I'll go over the key terms. So biofilm is going to be this slimy layer of microorganisms that resist cleaning. You're also going to see resistance as a term in decontamination when they start talking about microbes like MRSA, It's going to be something that they call antibacterial resistance. So those are going to be those. I don't know if y'all as old as me, but back in the day, they used to talk to us about superbugs. So things like MRSA and staph infections, they called them superbugs because we had antibiotics that used to be able to kill them. But over time, those germs have learned how to resist our antibiotics. So they're a lot harder to kill now. So the same antibiotics I used to give you for a staph infection 20 years ago, I might not be able to use at all these days because that staph infection, that staph germ, staphylococcus, has mutated and evolved to resist. Okay, so it's the same concept when we're talking about biofilm. It's going to build up a layer to resist our cleaning. And what that means for us then in decontam is it might be a little harder for us to get something clean. We might have to scrub a little more. We might have to put it through the washer more than once because we let it sit so long that now we have this biofilm layer, this hardened layer of gross soil that we're dealing with. Okay, gross soil, that's that visible debris like blood, bone, tissue, mucus. Again, not trying to be gross, but little chips, pieces of anything they might have left behind from surgery. If you can see it, that is considered gross soil. I do always feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but I always say this because I've been working in this field for 16 years now and seen it all. Just because you cannot see any gross soil does not mean that the instrument is clean. Okay? It's not clean. It's just free of gross soil. If I sit here right now and I go outside and I pick up a handful of dirt and I come in here and I show it to y'all and I spill it down, my hand's going to have dirt on it, right? Then I take a wipe cloth and I wipe all the dirt off and now you can't see any more gross soil. Is my hand clean? The answer is no. I still got to take this hand and go to the sink and put some soap and water on it to get the remaining invisible layer of germs off. Okay? That's your whole job, is to know that you're removing gross soil and then you're going to clean with chemicals and disinfectants. Okay? All right. Lastly, in that section, we talked about a leak-proof container. You guys are going to find, if you're not already in the field, that we have a lot of baskets and things that have a lot of holes in them. I wouldn't be able to transport in one of those. I need a leak-proof, sealed, and closed container for transport of soiled instruments. Test taking tip from this section. When a question asks or says immediately after use, they're talking about point of use. If they say to you anything about what happens immediately after you use that instrument, they're talking about what is happening at the bedside, not so much what's happening in decontam. Okay? And that's another place where context might change how you answer a question. Leadership focus here, risk management. That's what decontamination is. It's risk management. It's contamination control. Okay? Everything that comes in your room is dirty. This is not a clean room. Sometimes even in the field, we call them dirty rooms, soiled rooms, soil utility rooms. These are all names you're going to hear for the same thing, which is in that room, we bring dirty stuff and we clean it. Okay? AKA put your full PPE on when you go in there. All right? So risk management is getting you to prevent cross-contamination, and that's going to start with your proactive action. Okay, just because everything coming into your room is dirty doesn't mean I want you guys mixing all the dirty things together too. No. Okay, every hospital is going to do a little bit differently, but for the most part, you're going to receive a case card. You're going to break that down. You're going to go to the next case card. Okay, for the most part. Some places you might pull all the instruments out on a table and then start cleaning the trays individually. It might happen a little different everywhere, but what's never going to happen, I should say, what should never happen is you take instruments out of one case cart and you start mixing them together with trays from a different room. That shouldn't be happening. As a matter of fact, people get paid good money to figure out how to stop that stuff from happening. Okay. Next section. I don't see no question. I don't see no nothing. Okay. Look, 6 o'clock and I'm gone. Did I accidentally close that? Okay, there we go. Okay, so decontam setup and manual cleaning. When you guys go into your decontam rooms, I'm going to show us a little video here in a sec. But when you guys go into your decontam rooms, you're going to see that they're relatively set up the same way everywhere you go. The big difference is just going to be how big is the room. Okay? Is it a big room? Is it a small room? And trust me when I say I've worked in all of them. Lord have mercy. I pray your decontam ain't small. But if it is, it's still going to have all the same stuff. All right. So decontam, when you guys come in the room, is going to have an open space where you can stop, put that PPE on. It's also going to have an open space where you can receive those case cards. And if you're not familiar with what case cards are, I'm going to show you a little video here in a second. But essentially, these are stainless steel push carts that you use. You're going to fill with instruments, close the doors, and take off. Okay. If you've never seen one before, probably the closest thing I could think to it is like those food carts they use to transport in like hotels and stuff. Okay, so when things come into decontam, this is a place where you're going to see your workflow come up probably somewhere on your exam, as far as things must flow from what we call dirty to clean. So they're coming in the door or off the case cart dirty. You're going to get it. You're going to take it to your sink. You're going to prep it. You're going to scrub it down, make sure any of that gross soil that didn't come off at point of use comes off in your sink. You're then going to load those instruments up and put them into the automated washer if they are designated to do so. Some of your instruments are delicate, have motors, have plastics, XYZ. They might not all go into the automated washer, all right? But for the ones that can, that's where they're going to go. If it can't go there, there'll be a different area segregated for you to do what we call hand washing. So you will do that manual cleaning, and then you'll dry and disinfect those instruments off in a separate area of the decontam room. And then they'll flow through what we call a pass-through window where you'll send them off into assembly, all right? For the automated washer, they're designed to open up in the assembly side. So you won't like physically pass them, but once you load them into the washer, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so never am I going to take the instruments from the doorway and take them straight to the washer because they need to go to the sink first. Never am I going to take the instruments from the sink and then go back out the door because they need to go through the washer first, right? So that flow from clean to dirty is what you're going to be trying to work through in your mind. When they ask you a question, you want to think about where you are in the flow of that tray. All right. We talked about, thank you, Sherry. Thank you, folks on TikTok. We talked about PPE. You got to wear it all. Fluid-resistant gown, face shield, gloves, shoe covers. I'm sorry, I get angry every time I read it because you just don't know. If I had $1, if I had $1 for every technician that I ever had to go in a decontam and say, where's your mask? Where is your face shield? Where's your shoe covers? Put it on. Okay. Now, steps for manual cleaning. Because again, manual and mechanical cleaning, I would have cards for what those stand for because it's going to come up on your test. So I would get fluent. Manual cleaning is what we do at the sink. And like I said, even if it's going through mechanical washing, it usually is going to stop at the sink first to get prepared. You can think about this like the dishwasher at home. Hopefully I'm not saying something new to you. But when you use your dishwasher at home, you clean the plates and stuff off before you put them into the dishwasher. You scrape the plate into the trash. That's removing gross soil. If you take it to the sink, you rinse it down. That's removing gross soil. Then you put it into the dishwasher, and the dishwasher starts what we call mechanical cleaning. Okay, so manual cleaning, you're going to use brushes. You're going to use detergent. You might find that you even have magnifying glasses or inspection lights in your decontam, all designed for you to be able to see if there's any bioburden left behind. Okay, when you receive instruments to the sink side, also, you're going to have a process for what you clean first. Now, for my Hillman Talk students, this should be just a reminder, but anybody else that's new, when you get that case card, let's say we did a laparoscopic procedure. If we did a laparoscopic procedure, that means at a minimum, we have an instrument set that has the laparoscopic instruments in it. We have a camera. We have a scope that gets attached to the camera. Because again, remember, laparoscopic means they make that small incision and then they put those instruments into the incision. In order for the surgeon to have a visual field, they have to make another one and put that camera inside. Okay. So now you got at least a camera and scope and the surgical instruments. When you get those to the sink side, I love to see guesses. When you get it to the sink side, which one of those things should you probably clean first? Because it's not going through the mechanical washer. Which one of them should you probably clean first? You got a camera, a scope, and some surgical instruments. But your surgical instruments is going through the washer. Which one should you probably clean in that sink first? Come on, y'all. This is a safe place to guess. You don't want to be guessing on the test. Guess with me. Guess in study hall. Don't guess on the test. Which one would you clean first? TikTok said camera. YouTube, what y'all got? Camera. Lucinda said camera. I got one person on TikTok said the lumens. Okay. The camera. Now, why? And that's all right. That's okay. We guessing in study hall. We don't want to guess on a test. Camera. The reason why and again, there are no rules or laws on this. This is just my 16 years in my thought process I'm sharing with you, okay? If I'm at the sink and I got cameras and lenses that are going to go through the pass-through window, I want to clean them with the cleanest water I'm going to have, with the freshest sink. I done just made my detergent and my water up. Now I'm going to clean my camera and I'm going to clean my lenses. Why? My camera cannot go through the washer for obvious reasons. Hopefully obvious reasons. If it's not obvious, go ahead and ask in the chat why the camera can't go through the washer. Camera can't go through the washer. So I'm going to wipe that down. I'm going to wipe the camera cord down. I'm going to do the same thing at the rinse side. It can't get dunked in the sink, right? It's a camera. So I'm going to take a clean wash rag with no detergent and I'm going to wipe it down and I'm going to put it to the clean side. Next thing I'm going to do is my scopes. Same process. Detergent rag, wipe them down. Rinse rag, wipe them down. Set them to the side. Now, my water has a little bit of something in it because I got some stuff off the lenses and I got some stuff off the camera. But that stuff is going through the window. Now I move on to my lumen instruments. Because my lumen instruments have way more gunk because they went straight up in the body, right? So I'm pushing brushes through those, wiping them down, doing my brush on the instrument heads themselves, and putting those in the automated washer. So again, if I got a fresh sink of water and I have stuff that's going through the clean side, I want to clean the hand wash stuff in the freshest water possible and then send that through. Use my somewhat dirty water for the stuff that's going to go into the automated washer because I'm using it to get the gross soil off. And keep this in mind. There is such a thing as too dirty of water for you to clean with. So don't be scared to change the sink. If it's looking too murky, change it out. All right, I'm catching up over here TikTok. Some scopes. So Finn said, because scopes need steam. Some of your scopes are sturdy enough, they're going to go in the steam sterilizer. Some of your scopes are very much more delicate, and they're going to go in your low temp hydrogen peroxide sterilizer. But all of them, for the most part, are going to be manually cleaned. A good majority of them, you're not going to put them through the washer. Another reason why you wouldn't put them through the washer, and I'm going to move on. If you put your scopes and your cameras in the washer and they start bouncing around because that water is spraying so hard, you might break the lenses inside of them, make them useless. Okay? Now, that being said, you guys will encounter some scopes that can go through the washer. You're going to know because of your IFU, because of your instructions for use. Okay? All right. And then before we move down into the key terms on this one, I want to show you guys a real quick little video on the automated disinfector, just so you can get an idea of what that looks like if you haven't seen it. And these links to these YouTube videos will be in my notes that will go up after class. All right.
These are pass-through, so when we move upstairs, we're going to have to load from the dirty side and you empty in a clean side.
Okay? So I'm going to play it one more time. This whole unit is the washer disinfector. Notice that there's instrument baskets on each layer. Nothing is stacked though. And I want you guys, I'm going to play it one more time, and I want you guys to also pay attention to, look how that water is pushing through there. You need that pressure to knock that BioBurden and anything left off of those instruments, okay? And that process with that water pushing down hard like that, that process is what we call impingement. Impingement. And impingement is what the automated washer is all about. That's how you knock all that bone and thing that was left off. And then it's also hot in there. So it does a little bit of what we call a thermal disinfection. Okay. All righty. Let me get them other notes back up. We're going to keep pushing through. And if y'all got questions as I go, feel free to ask them. In the meantime, I much appreciate everybody on YouTube liking the video and everybody on TikTok tapping the screen. I appreciate you. All right, here we go. Nope, I did it again. Hold on. Pop it up and then. Okay. All right. So we talked about manual cleaning. We looked at the automated washer. That's the mechanical cleaning. Okay. There's different machines and such, but for the most part, they look mostly the same. Study notes for this section. Key terms I want you to pay attention to. If you don't have a note somewhere, a flashcard somewhere about this stuff, make it now. When you look at your detergents or your enzymatic detergents are what we use in decontam to break down gross soil. And enzymatic is a chemical term. It's going to be very critical for you to understand what makes up an enzymatic and how it works. So you're going to see words like amylase. You're going to want to have a card about that. Okay. You're going to see different, building blocks, if you will, of what makes an enzymatic detergent enzymatic versus what makes a detergent neutral. Some instruments, you cannot use an enzymatic detergent on it because of its where it is on the pH scale, and the versus neutral detergents are right there in the middle. They're neutral. They're not acid, not base. We have some instruments that are that delicate that you can only use neutral versus enzymatic. One thing also off the top of my head, we use neutral pH detergents to clean eye instruments almost exclusively. No matter where you go, no matter what IFU you use, it's almost always going to ask for neutral pH detergents. And the reason is because those instruments are being used in your eye. And if let's say I use an enzymatic that has something in it that's designed to break down protein, right? Because we're using these detergents to break down protein, fat, all the stuff, saline in our blood, right? We're using it to break this stuff down. If I put an enzymatic detergent on an eye instrument and then I don't rinse it properly and you get it on your eye, those chemicals could break down the proteins in your eyes. We don't even want to take that chance. So we use a neutral detergent. Your brushes, when you guys are brushing through, when you're pushing a brush through a lumen, right? So something that has a hole in it and you're pushing the brush through, you must do two things for me, please. One, make sure you're using a brush that's long enough to go through the lumen. If the brush only stops halfway down, then all the gunk only stops halfway down and you did not clean anything. You just moved dirt around. Number two, your brush must reach the outside of whatever it's going through. So for instance, if this is my brush and that's my lumen, this brush is not touching the sides of that lumen. Again, maybe I'm tickling the dirt, but I'm not cleaning anything, versus if it can actually touch the sides, okay? Last thing about that, touching the sides is not the same thing as you forcing something to fit. Remember, these are surgical instruments. If you scrape the inside of that lumen, I may never know. But you have created a danger for your patients, because that's going to be something that if I got a scrape in there, that means my passivization layer is gone. That means the next time I push that instrument through, it's going to pick up bioburden and I might not be able to get it back off. And then we already Lastly, with decontam, no matter how you clean it, whether it's manual or mechanical, it must receive a final rinse. And usually with a treated water, you're going to see deionized in there. What else do they have in there? It's going to pop in my mind at a random moment. I'm going to be like, but it must be a final rinse involved. The final rinse is to remove all the chemicals. So whether it's neutral detergent, whether it's enzymatic detergent, whether it's a disinfectant, we want to rinse it off and get it all off. But we're using a treated water. We don't want to use like a tap water to clean off our chemical residue, because then we're reintroducing germs. Hope that makes sense. Versus like EO water is going to be, an RO water is going to be something that's filtered. Okay. Key terms. Enzymatic detergent. They use enzymes to break down organic soil. Those enzymes do have a name. Get them out your book. Make a note. TOSI test. So we talked about the fact that we test that sterilizer with that PCD pack to see if it worked or not, because I don't want to crawl inside of the 275-degree machine to see do it work. In your decontam area, it's called a TOSI test. That's what you're going to use to test your automated washers. It's got some chemicals in it. You'll put it in with your washer, a disinfector load once a day usually is what it calls for, but you'll look for your IFU to find out exactly what that is. And then that is going to replicate soil for you. So when we get it out on the other side, we're expecting for it to look clean. And that's what you're going to use to test. If for any reason your TOSI test fails, you take that washer disinfector out of use until you get it figured out, until you get biomed on the job. Test taking tip for this section: break your long sections up into key words. Okay, when you run across that question, I think I read that wrong. Break your long questions up into keywords. What is it really asking? When you run across those longer questions that just look like a little paragraph, when you do that first and second reading, read through for the key terms, because that's going to show you where you are in the flow of that instrument, help give you some context so you can answer that question. Also, don't forget that there's usually an option for you to set questions to the side and come back to them. So if something you read and you like, I really do not understand that, skip it. Go through the rest of the test, come back to that. Reason being, I bet you will find some clue. I promise you, almost always, you will find some clue to help you figure out what the answer to that question is. All right. Okay, so we're getting into washer disinfectors and cleaning efficacy. That's going to pop up somewhere. Because when we say efficacy with cleaning, what we want to know is, did it work? Were we efficient? Did it actually help? Because you can absolutely clean something and still be dirty, okay, and not effective. So we want to look through that. I want you guys to have a flashcard for the phases of your washer disinfector, because again, it will come up on your test. Your washer disinfector is going to go through the following phases. Once you push those instruments into the machine that we was looking at, I pull it back up. We press start. It starts first with a pre-rinse. You can kind of think about it like when you go to the car wash, right? When you first roll in the car wash, the first thing it does, gets your car wet. Think about it also like hand washing. If you're following the CDC method of hand hygiene or the World Health Organization method of hand hygiene, the first thing you do is get your hands wet. This is going to decrease the surface tension on your hands. So any germs or gross soil you have on them, it's easier for it to come off when you introduce your soap. Okay. So pre-rinse, push the instruments in. The machine is going to start with a pre-rinse phase. Then it's going to introduce its enzymatic wash, its detergent. So it's going to start pushing detergent into the machine. It's going to do the washing. And then it's going to do what we call a thermal rinse, or hot water. Very, very hot water. Okay. That's going to rinse off all of the chemicals and make sure that instrument is sparkling and ready to go. Lastly, your washer disinfector is going to go through a drying phase where you will hear it like a blow dryer came on, right? And it's just blowing air in there. It will likely not get your instruments completely dry. Just like when you come out the car wash, you're dripping a little bit. But it'll do a pretty decent job. Okay. Excuse me. I think I missed this, but we talked about that, so I'm not going to trip. Okay. So those are the phases of the washer disinfector. I would definitely recommend having a flashcard with all 5 of the phases on there. Impingement. So we talked about this a little bit, but that's that high pressure that's coming out of those spray arms. When you guys actually see your wash disinfector, what you will see is it's usually kind of built this way in that there's a head where all the water comes in, but you have arms that go and spread out across the top or across the wash disinfector itself so that it can reach all these instruments. And then they spin. Okay, so it's giving you these really tiny little holes for the water to shoot through. Think about impingement. Have you guys ever done this with your garden hose, where you take your thumb and you put it on your garden hose and you get the water to come out like in a little faster stream? That's impingement. Okay, you're forcing that water into a tighter space, so then it shoots out more direct and faster with more pressure. Okay, that's impingement. We talked about this already with the TOSI test, but your washer disinfectors need to be verified for cleanliness at least daily. You may have some that ask for it more frequently, but again, you're going to find that in your instructions for use. But most machines are daily. But there may be situations come up, you might want to do it every shift, or I don't know, it could happen. Big thing with this is you're going to have that TOSI test that mimics that bioburden, right? And we're looking for that TOSI test to come out clean with nothing left on it, no streaks or anything. That shows us that our impingement is working, okay? That's a test for our impingement. If I put a TOSI test in the machine and I take it out and it's still pretty much got stuff on it, then I know something's going on with my washer arms, okay? Also, we're going to use indicator strips. These might be thermal. These might be just, again, similar to the TOSI test. Same thing. If I don't get the change I'm looking for when I take it out the machine, then I want to put it out of service and get biomed in here to figure out what's going on. If I'm failing a verification test like that TOSI and it might be my washer arms, you may need to do a little maintenance, some cleaning, because washer arms can get clogged up. Okay, so notes about the washer disinfector. You want to load any angled instruments you want to load with angled instruments and space for water to flow. Okay. When I show you the next little bioburden decontam video, you will see the instruments are not always just laying flat. Some things you have to put at an angle. Like for instance, if you have a basin, big old bowl, right? I need to put it at an angle so that the water is flowing into it, but also washing back out. If I put it in there like this, then the water is flowing in, but it's just pooling in there. So I might have detergent that don't get rinsed out properly, things of that nature. So that might have to be at an angle. If I have something like, for instance, let's see, if I was going to put this little pocket knife through the automatic disinfector, I could put it in there like this, but then every single thing that I have that's in there isn't getting in any type of water or disinfectant on it. So something else to know about putting instruments in the washer disinfector, they always have to be in an open position. If it's hinged, open the hinge. Okay. If it's a retractor and it comes apart in 3 different pieces, you probably want to unscrew that and have it in an open position so that water and disinfectant can touch everywhere. Lastly, you may see this is probably not as likely to show up on your test, but I would be familiar with the terminology of ATP testing, just as far as being another way that you can test your washer disinfectors and make sure that everything is working in your room. Okay. ATP testing is a process of checking surfaces to see if they still contain any type of germs or proteins. So you'll swab them, and then it has a little test jacket. You put the swab in, and you're looking for color changes usually. We don't see this everywhere, like every single sterile processing department doing ATP testing yet. But more and more you're starting to see it at least done on a semi-regular basis to make sure that everything is working properly. Key terms for that section: impingement. That's that high pressure spray action that helps to clean surfaces. You can't get a wash disinfector to do much of anything if it doesn't have good impingement. With the ATP bioluminescence, that ATP test, this is going to test and detect if there's any organic residue left. So it's kind of like, you can think about it almost like one of those black light tests. And if you left any type of protein, it's gonna alert you. Test taking tip for decontam questions: know your numbers. They're going to ask you specific temperatures. Okay. They might ask you specific times. They might ask you for minimums and maximums of stuff. Know your numbers. If they put it in that chapter, you better have it on a flashcard. Okay. Also for decontam, same thing like sterilize, or for that assembly area we talked about last week in sterile storage, there is a environment of care parameter around your decontam. So you're going to want to know what temperature your decontam can be, the room. What's the temperature in that room? What's the air exchanges in that room? And what's the humidity in that room? As in, how much humidity can you have? Is it 80%? Is it 50%? You're going to want to know that for that room, but you guys should already have that card if you was in here last week. All right, let me check on YouTube. Okay, we're doing all right. Okay, and then leadership skill focus for this section. The name of the game is quality assurance. Again, you can't be inside of these machines to see that they all work properly, but you can test the quality and make sure that it's actually up to snuff. That's going to be your test and your monitoring. That's going to be you reading the printouts on your wash disinfectors or looking at the screens to see, is it in temperature range? Is it going through all the phases? Am I getting any type of alarms? You're there to control the quality, to assure the quality is met. All right. Last little thing I want to say about that, guys, depending on your unit, this may be, you may be on what they call an instrument tracking system where your instruments have barcodes. There will be some type of online or on-screen quality assurance checking that you got to do, whether that's putting your test results in from when you come in the morning and you check your automated washers with your toasties and stuff and make sure it works. Whether that's doing ATP testing, whatever it looks like, there might be a space in there for you to document that stuff as well. And because it's a decontam room, and because you guys are dealing with chemicals, it's going to have an eye wash station in there. So your eye wash stations are going to need to be checked probably at least once a week, depending on the facility, because you don't want your eye wash station, everybody coming in there thinking, oh, the eye wash station is there. It works. We never check it, but it works. Okay. Well, now Finn then spilled the detergent in her eye, and we then ran over to the damn thing, and it don't run no water, and we didn't know, because we don't test it, right? So most decontams will make it so that at least once a week, you guys are testing that and making sure that it works. And that's something that you would initial. And remember, guys, anytime you got to put your initials or your name on that document, that's a legally binding document. That is a discoverable document. That is something that somebody can ask somebody else for to say, hey, I want to know, was that sterile processing department doing what they were supposed to do? Let me see them washer disinfector logs. Oh, they weren't testing it every day? Okay, lawsuit. It really can't be that simple. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want it to say Finn, Alessandra, and then 3 days it was supposed to be Alessandra, but it don't say nothing. I don't want to be that person. All right. Any questions on that before I move over? And then here, I just have a little note about y'all flashcards. I know I keep saying it, but I swear it's the best thing in the world to help you with your test. Okay, I don't see no questions. And hopefully you guys are writing them out, your vocab words from your book. I do see it online, like I've seen on TikTok, people are selling flashcards and stuff. And that's cool if you want to buy them. But I really feel like from a memory standpoint, it really does help you when you handwrite them yourself and you keep them with you and flip them over. Now, that being said, it might not be accessible for everybody. So if you need to buy you some, you buy you some. The main thing is study them. A little bit every day, and also have somebody else help you study them. Okay. So, on here, these are my notes from my class, so there's a little remedial, forgive me. But when you make your flashcards, because maybe somebody don't know, when you make your flashcards, you want to put the term on the front. On the back, you want to put the definition. And so my example that I have on here was a term for cavitation. Cavitation is something we see when we use our ultrasonic washers. I haven't talked about ultrasonics with y'all, but it's in your book. Look, at y'all haven't asked, so I'm assuming people ain't got no questions. But cavitation, so that automated washer cleans with impingement, right? It shoots that water at those instruments. When I put it into the ultrasonic, usually I'm putting it in there for two reasons. Either one, it's too delicate to go through that automated washer, or two, it has so many little delicate parts and pieces, and it has so much bioburden stuck in places, and I want to blow that out. Now, how do I do that? I do that with a process called cavitation. Cavitation is going to be the collapse of microscopic bubbles in an ultrasonic cleaner that dislodges soil. What does that mean? What that means is you're going to make little bubbles in your water. Think about a soda, and how your soda has those little bitty bubbles inside. And when you open up the top, what happens? All those little bubbles start to dislodge, and they come up to the top and they start popping, right? They become they become collapsed. They pop. They're not a bubble anymore. When that happens inside of the ultrasonic, it essentially blows up any of that little gross soil that's on those instruments. So another place that we see cavitation a lot is with jewelry cleaners. They'll take your earrings and your rings and stuff, and they'll put them in a little ultrasonic, and it's making those little bubbles. And as those bubbles pop, it releases that soil. All right. So you would have that term on the front. If you was making a flashcard for this, you would have cavitation on the front, and then you would have the definition on the back. On the back is also a great place to make any type of notes that you're using to remember what this stuff means, right? So if you heard Alessandra say, oh, cavitation is like the bubbles in the soda that pop, and if that helps you, put it on your flashcard, okay? All right. So I have a note for my instructors when they do their class, but I'm going to stop it here. Is tell me one thing, y'all, because we've been talking for a while. I see some surprised faces and all. What is something that we've been talking about for the last hour that you're unclear about? And we'll spend a little more time, okay? What is something you're unclear about? Are you unclear about what PPE is? Cavitation? Impingement? Are you unclear about what's the difference between an ultrasonic and an automated dishwasher? Don't say that in SPD, girl. That'll get to fight me. Are we unclear about the difference between an ultrasonic and an automated disinfector? Are we unclear about the workflow of dirty to clean? Anything unclear? Okay. So what y'all saying is I'm good at this. That's what y'all saying. Okay. I mean, because I believe it. All right. We'll move on then. ATP testing? Okay. All right. So ATP testing, that's going to be one of your quality assurance tests. Quality assurance meaning I can't get in that machine and tell you it did work, but I can test everything that came out of it and let you know if I'm seeing anything I shouldn't be seeing. So ATP testing is a quality assurance test. And the way that ATP testing works is it's going to test for proteins. Now, think about it like this. If I had did surgery with a bunch of instruments and the body has protein in it, right? Blood has protein in it. If I didn't get some blood off somewhere, I'm looking at it. It looks clean. I see the stainless steel, but I swab with my ATP test. And the way ATP tests look, you know, when they do those mouth swabs, they look like that. It's a real big, long swab. You'll swab your instrument or swab your surface and have some type of chemical on it. And then you'll put that into a tester. It'll incubate for a little while. And then it should do a color change if it's a manual. If it's a machine, then you'll put it into the machine and it's going to test it. And it's going to tell you either no protein is present or we got a problem, right? It's not going to do all that actually. It's not going to, but it will give you a number to let you know if it's in a safe zone or not in a safe zone. So the ATP test is a quality assurance test that's looking for proteins. And it does that in a process of what we call bioluminescence. Big word, but if we break it down, it really does make sense. Bio, meaning bioburden. Luminescence, meaning light it up, right? So just like, and again, I ain't trying to be nasty, but you know when they do that, when you be on the murder mystery shows, and they go in there and they spray the wall down, they turn the black light on, and then you see all the blood that's on the walls and the sheets and stuff. That's bioluminescence. Okay, so that's how it tested. All right, how that do? Good. All right, friend. All right. What about y'all, YouTube? Y'all still quiet over there? Okay. Look, okay. Locked in. So quality assurance is the name of the game. Because I can't look at it and tell you it's clean, right? Somebody else that don't have a CRCST certification might tell you that, oh, look at it. It don't got no bioburden on it. It's clean. But y'all know better. Y'all know better than that. Okay. Oh my God, am I at the end of my notes? Oh, wow. Okay. So, if there's anything else that was unclear, feel free to drop it in the chat. Or if it's something else that you like, I'm pretty sure I got it, but just go over it one more time. Put it in the chat. If there's something I didn't talk about today that you have a question on, put it in the chat. All right? And I'm going to read off the rest of my notes while we get ready to wrap up. Okay. Again, flashcards, key terms. If it's in one of them highlighted boxes in your book, it should definitely have a flashcard. If it is describing the way a room is supposed to feel, temperature, air exchanges, humidity, make a card. Highly suggest one for your dirty to clean flow. I also suggest one for the life cycle of a tray. Those are two things that might not necessarily pop on your test, but I want you to be thinking about how those flows work because the questions on your test will be impacted by that context, okay? And test taking tip for the end, use your flashcards out loud with the timer. Speed will help you retain that information, okay? You might have, like, let's say you take 20 of them out and you give yourself 2 minutes. See how many you can get through. You pressuring yourself is going to help you remember and retain that information. All right. The whole point of the flashcards is to get quick. I say cavitation, you say breaking down them bubbles. Okay, you don't say that, but you say the definition, right? If I say decontamination, the removal of gross soil. Sterilization, to render something with no germs left, right? I'm not giving you the definitions. I'm just trying to give you an example, right? So that's the point of your flashcards. So that way, when you guys get to this exam and you see those key terms and those questions, you already know what's up. Last leadership skill focus, because again, I don't know if I've made it clear, but when you guys work on the floor, you're going to be mostly independent. You will have people working beside you. You will have team leads and supervisors on the floor, but nobody can be everywhere all the time. You have to be able to lead yourself. You have to be able to know these workflows and be able to think through your own room. Okay, please, I beg. So that's why I added these leadership skills. One thing I think is a really beautiful leadership skill is when leaders learn to work as a part of a team. And one of the best and easiest ways to do that is to coach each other. Okay. So I highly encourage y'all. I know some of y'all from the Hillman Talk class and some of y'all have come in later, but I highly encourage you guys to get together outside of study hall, find at least one person that's also getting ready for this exam and study together. Coach each other together on your weak areas. Hand each other your flashcards or do a Zoom date or a Google Meet date. And you hold yours up and y'all have fun with it. The more that you can get this in, the more ways that you get this information in, the more it's going to help you retain it. Okay? So just a little suggestion. Of course, you ain't got to do none of that. Okay, right? Of course, you ain't got to do none of that. But just some tips to try to help you guys out so you can be successful the first time you take this exam. And that being said, let me finish with saying this. I've been working in the sterile processing field for 16 years. I have seen people take this exam that are students that have never been in SPD before and pass it the first time. I've seen students that have taken the class and have never been in SPD before and have to take this test 3 times before they pass it. Not because they didn't get it, but some people just ain't that fantastic with tests. Okay, makes them nervous, whatever the case may be. I have also seen technicians that have been in the field for 10 years that take this test the first time and they don't pass it. Okay, so that being said, I highly expect that if you guys do all the things that I've asked for you to do in the Candray Institute's classes and in the Hillman-Taught class and the study hall, I'm confident that you guys can pass the first time. But that being said, anything could happen. Maybe you get in there, you get nervous. Maybe you get in there and it just all goes out your brain. I don't know. But I don't want you to give up. If you have to take that test more than once, take that test more than once. You only got to pass it one time. Okay. Now, if you become the rare case of a person that got to take it 5, 10 times, then maybe this ain't for you. But 2, I swear, at least 2 is pretty average. Pretty average. All right. So study hard, and you only have to do that once, but don't quit if you don't pass the first time. Okay. It does. If you don't pass the test, you do have to pay the fee again. So it is a little bit of a financial burden to you in that way. But guys, once you get your CRCST and you get on the floor, your earning potential, it just goes up as you have years of experience, okay? So depending on where you're at in the world, it's going to tell you where you start. Like my techs in California, they started out at $30 an hour because we were in downtown Oakland. My techs, when I started in Carbondale, I started at $7.25 because that was the minimum wage here. Now the minimum wage here is $15 an hour, so I think those techs start out around like $16 or $18 an hour. It's just going to depend on where you are. The more experience you get, though, the more you're able to leverage that to get higher base rates. You'll also get some salary increases from your facilities. And lastly, there are additional certifications you can get to certify yourself as what we call a specialist, right? So your CRCST is the basic certification that anybody working in sterile processing has to get. But there's also additional ones like the certified instrument specialist, certified healthcare leader, and certified endoscopy processor that you can get after your CRCST to help make yourself even more profitable, help make yourself stand out even better. Okay. Last thing I want to say about the test is just a reminder, you can take this test whenever you want. This is HSPA. If you're on CBSPD, they have 2 more testing windows for the year. I know the next one is in August, and then I ain't going to get the lying about when the 4th one is, but it's after August. I know the next test is in August, and the deadline to fill out the CBSPD application, I believe, is at the end of July. Okay, so just a heads up there. They do too. They have they're not the same exact acronyms like instrument specialist and healthcare leader and CR, but they have similar additional certifications. Okay. All righty. Any other questions for me? I still got a hot 5 minutes scheduled to hang out with y'all. But if y'all don't want me, then look, if y'all don't need nothing out my brain, then I'm on mosey on. We have one more study hall session scheduled for this series on Monday. Starts at 4:45. You guys are more than welcome to join on YouTube, Tiki-Taki friends. If y'all want to see the notes on my screen, join from YouTube. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to see y'all right where you at. I appreciate y'all tapping the screen. The likes help the algorithm, and the same thing over here, YouTube. I see where y'all did reactions on the page. I very much appreciate that. Don't hesitate to share this video with somebody you know that is trying to study and get ready for the exam. And I will have a new class coming soon. Soon. I wanted to finish the study hall series first before I start a new class. So I'm probably try to get them started in July. And get back in the saddle. All right. Thank you. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, TikTok. If y'all don't have nothing else, I'm going to let you go. All right. Bye now. Thank y'all. I'll see you on Monday. If you need me in the in-between, don't hesitate to reach out, y'all. Go to my website or click on like I said, click on the various links. You can find me at the Candray Institute at gmail.com.